Hello and welcome to the second video. In the last one, I talked about why making small changes to your day can have huge impacts and kind of the value behind that. And in this episode, or in this video, I'm going to talk about why it's difficult to make change and a few ways to make that a little bit easier. So what I want to talk about right now is our brain, which is an amazing thing, but sometimes it works against us. And in change, that's one of the times where it works against us. But there's a positive side to it, which I'll get to in a second. But basically, our brain is really good at seeing patterns. And what it does is your whole life, it's been looking at everything you do and collecting data, and it now has come to the belief that all these things you've done, you are the type of person that does these things, which makes sense. But the problem with that is if you decide, hey, I don't want to be the person that does all these things, I've decided that I want to change who I am, and your brain is going to be like, well, no, that's not who you are. And just in the same way we talked about votes in changing who you are, that's what you have to do in this case as well. You have to do something enough times that you convince your brain that you are the person to do this. Because at first, change is going to be very uncomfortable, and your brain is going to be telling you, no, you're not this person. And it's going to look for reasons to say, yes, I'm right. Because it's much easier to say, yes, I'm right, than it is to say, oh, maybe I've been wrong for the past 15 years, or however long. But that's why it can get really hard in the beginning. But you have to continue giving it more and more reason to say, okay, maybe I am the person that works out. Maybe I am the person that's productive. But it can be very difficult. Another reason why change is hard is because many activities that are good for you, and by good for you, which I'll talk more about in the next video, I'm talking about things that bring you happiness, satisfaction, peace, security, just kind of a few things in general. But a lot of good habits are activity creates reward. And what I mean by that is that doing the activity is, you're not doing it because maybe you don't enjoy the activity, you're doing it because you like the reward that it brings you. An example of this is studying. So if I study, I do it because I like the reward of getting a good grade. And the reason I like that reward of getting a good grade is because it gives me more job opportunities. And then I get higher pay, higher security, more income, I can spend it on things I want, go on vacations. So the activity of studying, I'm not studying, oh, I enjoy studying. I mean, maybe some people do, but you're studying because you want the reward of the good grade. But some other activities, maybe the activity is the reward. And what's really easy about these activities where the activity is the reward is that they're easy to connect. You do the activity, maybe you feel good, you feel happy, and you're like, okay, your brain connects that the activity is the reason you have that reward, and it wants to continue doing the activity. But in terms of these activity creates your reward, you do the activity, and maybe some time passes. I'll draw a little clock here. Maybe some time passes, and then you get the reward. And maybe your brain doesn't necessarily relate those two, so it doesn't enjoy the activity as much. Excuse me. But then over time, the more you do this activity and you get the reward, it's going to be able to realize that the activity creates a reward, and your brain is going to devote more importance to the activity, and it's going to be easier for you to do it. So what's great about that is it does get easier. If you want to implement something and change something in your life, the more you do it, it's going to be easier. And if you can look back in your past and kind of see something that you've changed, it's probably now a habit for you and just happens. And so it does get easier. But the change is the hard part. So now I want to talk about some ways you can rely on something other than your willpower, because willpower fades, your motivation will fade, and you're going to wake up, and if it's not easy to do and fun to do, you're not going to do it. So one thing I want to talk about is activation energy. So when I was trying to learn guitar, I would enjoy playing it, but what often would happen is I would never want to. I would be sitting doing something and I'd be like, I don't really feel like playing guitar. And that was at the same time I was reading a book that talked about this thing called activation energy. I realized that if I have my guitar, which it was in a case in my closet, every time I want to play, I go from here, I have to go and do something I don't like, I have to go get it out of the closet, tune the guitar, and then figure out whatever, and then play it, and then bam, now I'm here on this kind of slope, and I'm just chilling, I'm playing guitar, I'm having a blast, it's relaxing, I'm here. But then what I realized is that if I want to play guitar more often, what I have to do is lower this activation energy. So one way to do that would be, hey, let's take it out of the case, let's lean it against my desk, and so now all of a sudden, it's maybe here, let's say, instead of where it was before, up there. It's easier for me to start, and I'm more likely to do it because of that. And you can apply this to anything else. So let's say maybe you've been wanting to read a book, but you haven't. You put that book on your desk. Next time you're bored, you look at it and go, okay, I might as well start. Instead of it's out of mind, out of sight, like it's in a drawer and you're bored, you're not gonna see it, you're not gonna think about it, you're not gonna do it. So if you wanna do something, make it easy to do and make it visible. Another thing I wanna talk about is a lot of times people beat themselves up because they don't see progress. And that may be because maybe you're like, oh, I wanna start going to the gym, so you create a streak. Maybe you, these are like calendars over here, so maybe you hit like, wow, a whole 5 days. You hit 5 days in a row. And then all of a sudden you stop, you go like a few days and you try it again, but then it just didn't stick. So you're like, well, that sucked. I broke my streak, so you give up. Because that's what happens. A lot of times people are hard on themselves right here when they miss a day, and because all they cared about was the streak, they don't continue it. But what I think is better is something like this, where you're saying, hey, in this chunk of time, I worked out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. And in this one, I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 times. So you look at these 2 time chunks and you're like, hey, I may not have done a 5-day streak here. This one, the longest, was the 4 here. But you're doing it more consistency. And a lot of times, by focusing on just in general how much you're doing it, rather than certain streaks or things that you can, you will fail. Something will get in the way. A test will come up, something's gonna happen. You're not gonna be able to make it every single day, but that's okay. And that's why I think that it's a lot more valuable to kind of track, how often you're doing it in time instead of, streaks and such. But I hope that was beneficial. In the next video, I'll probably talk more about how to decide whether something is worth doing. But for now, that's all I have. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.